Hi Shane, can you tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and what led you to where you are now?
Man, still a lot of questions there. All right, so who I am. Who I am is I'm Shayne Halls, the founder of Manifested Dreams. I am just a young man who was born in the U.S. Virgin Islands. You all see my flag behind me wherever I go. I represent the VI proudly all the time. Love it. Born and raised on the white sands of St. Croix. So, founder of Manifested Dreams, the firm that I like to call sort of like a corporate culture curator. I've been working with senior talent acquisition for 15 years. And throughout my career, I've always tried to help companies build culture, high performing teams. I work with individuals and organizations to try to maximize the potential of not only the company, but the people in the company. My path has always been about people. It's never not been about people. I think many times persons in talent acquisition, persons in HR, we forget that we are at the precipice, the forefront of some of the most important decisions that people make in their life. Who you marry, where you live, what job you have are some of the most important things, decisions that you're going to make. And so I always try to keep that in mind as I'm doing my work, that it's about the people and it should always be people first. And so helping individuals find opportunities and helping organizations cultivate equitable workplaces is something that's super important to me. Recently, probably the last 6, 7 years, I've noticed that AI was reshaping the future of work. And I recognize that this is wonderful, but there's also some danger involved in it as well. Because if we're not equitable in our usage and production and implementation of AI, we run the risk of inherently building bias into our AI systems and automating bias, putting bias on repeat, hitting the repeat button on bias, and it just keep coming over and over again. And so that realization led me to position Manifested Dreams as a global leader in AI human strategy and cultivate the art of blending technology with humanity. So companies just don't adopt AI, but they also adopt it in an equitable manner.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. We are such big fans and believers of human-centered AI as well. And I agree there has been such a shift in the way AI has been being created as well. So it's how do we as humans work with it?
Most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I think the bias aspect is something that people are not thinking about enough. We know that because of how these models are, the data sets from the large language models, that actually there's bias inbuilt. Even if you say, think about this as a Black man or a Black woman or whoever, that it's kind of thinking about a stereotype, not
Yeah.
necessarily the reality of people. So this is really of interest, and I wrote a book called not AI, equality versus equity, tackling
That's
issues
good.
in the workplace.
Mhm.
But people still do find it really hard to get their head around what equity means. That the idea that we're not all starting from the same
Same
place.
place.
So that's
Exactly.
the piece. So, and I'm really curious the fact that you're in the US, and we know that a lot has happened in recent years. It can mean a lot. It does not
Right.
necessarily about race. It
Yeah.
can be around different areas. But I'm curious to know how your mission, how you can stay strong with your mission with the world that's changing in the way that it is.
Somebody has to, right? Like that's pretty much what it comes down to. I think that with all the changes, with all the cultural fluctuations that goes on, especially I know in the US, the culture shifts dramatically from president to president, from belief to belief, from party to party. And so somebody has to be the lighthouse, right? Somebody has to be steady. Somebody has to not quiet their voice when everyone is asking you to sit down and be quiet. And I try to remember that the little platform that I have is still bigger than some platforms that other people don't have. And it's up to me and it's my responsibility to speak for the persons who can't get their voice heard on any level, right? To speak for the entry level person, speak for the person who's just graduating school, speak for the person who's applying to try to get into school, speak for just everyone who's looking and seeking equity in their existence. And I think that that's what keeps me going is because I have 4 children. I have 3 sons and a young lady for my daughter who's the youngest, but I swear she's like the oldest out of all of them. I don't know how this happens, but she runs her brothers like she is the oldest sibling. And I know that I need to do my part to ensure that their future that they have is as equitable as possible. It won't be perfect. Rarely, or if ever, will it ever be equal, but we can do our parts to try to make it equitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And we are having our challenges in the UK right now. It's not exactly in the same way, but there is this sentiment that is happening at the moment, which
Okay.
is definitely against equity. And we're trying to work through that. And I completely agree. Keeping your voice steady, being consistently out there, but also allies. We need
Hmm.
people
Facts.
who it might not affect
Hmm.
them directly, but they care enough to raise their voice.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of people do care about equity in the recruitment process, in the work environment,
Hmm.
and whether that's around the performance managing of people. A lot of the data that I've read says that, for example, people of color are often, they are more in those performance management conversations than the majority group often.
Right.
And often they're the close second in the promotion, but they don't quite get it. Or in the recruitment process, they're the one when you look at both sheets of paper, but both CVs are pretty even, but they're not the ones getting the job.
Right. The bias comes into place.
Yeah, so that bias is in place in us as humans, so therefore that bias is in place in
In the
AI.
systems, exactly.
Yeah, so tell me how you are effectively challenging that.
Well, I think for organizations to tackle the bias that's in the recruitment process is that we have to look at it, like you mentioned, from a couple different ways. One, we have to try to make things as anonymous as possible. Black out the names, black out the schools, black out any sort of demographic or cultural clues that may exist on the resumes, whether that be your fraternities, whether that be, organizations that you volunteered with, whatever the case may be that could give demographic or cultural implications, excuse me, implications on who you are or your background or your affiliations. Let's black that out. Let's make sure that when the AI that you're using to go through the resumes and the persons that are looking at the resumes, they are having as unbiased view as possible. And when you're talking about the AIs that you're helping to take yourself through the recruitment and sourcing process, you want to make sure that you're using unbiased data to train the AI systems. Machine learning is amazing because it's literally learning as we input data into it. But we have to make sure that the data that we're inputting into it is not reflective completely of what we just were in the past. We want it to be reflective of what we actually want our workplace to look like. We need to put in information, we need to train it to cultivate and create and pull the information of what is the utopian idea, not the dystopian past that we've had to deal with systematic bias that's exist unconsciously and consciously in the past. And then we got to keep the human aspect alive and real. I think that we need to make sure that we don't use AI as the person, but that we keep the person in place to use AI as a tool, right? AI should augment decisions, not make the decisions, not replace the decision makers, right? We need to train our managers to be able to challenge the system. If we're getting patterned information that feels biased, then we need to be able to have managers who are in tune enough to the data they're receiving to pump the brakes and be like, okay, we're starting to see a pattern in the candidates that we're getting. We're starting to see a pattern on who is being dubbed for promotion. We're starting to see a pattern on who's getting merit increases because of performance reviews. So let's figure out why the AI is giving us this information and let's augment it and make sure that we are keeping everything as equitable and biased as possible.
Yeah, I think that that's so needed. I think that there needs to be more of that, not only in the UK but globally.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Today I was using so previously I used Gemini a lot in terms of large
Mm.
language models, but I've started using Claude. And I was writing a post. I wanted to help me write a post.
Hmm.
Uh, it suggested a sort of hook for it, and I said, "Do you know what? I think wouldn't this be a better hook?" So I gave it to Claude, and it said, "What does your gut tell you, Jenny?" And I thought, "Where is this? Who's trading this thing?" And I
Yeah.
thought, really good question because I have a gut. It doesn't have a gut,
Yeah.
Right.
And absolutely, I should defer to my gut and not
Right.
AI is telling me. So I kind of said, yeah, my gut's telling me, not what you said, what I
Exactly.
was like, yeah, I think that's a good decision. And then I
That's
said,
the humanity part.
to it, but don't you always agree with me anyway? So don't you think my decisions are great? And it was like, I would tell you if I thought you were going wrong. And I thought this is a great conversation because what you're doing is showing that you value the human.
Yep.
And we need to value our human as well, don't we?
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
I
Yeah.
think with the use of AI, we were also watching a TV show last night and it was children in school. And there was a child who'd used AI in one of her school pieces.
Mhm.
And if you're using AI, even just in a graded piece of work, then you're not using your brain that you have. I think we need to be more, we need to use our autonomy more. And I think that we need to use our autonomy and also bring in that inclusivity, like
Right.
you were saying as well. It can't be an afterthought. I was wondering what your first steps would be. What would your first steps for leaders be to build inclusivity in their AI adoption journey from the very, very beginning?
Yeah, it starts with the vendors, right? Like when you are even thinking about the AI implementation, when you are having that first conversation around the leadership table, when you are proposing and asking the other leaders, how do we be better? How are we going to make our company more innovative? The idea comes about to, all right, let's find some AI to implement throughout the organization. Well, then we need to be cognizant and purposeful about the vendors and the producers of the AI in which you're looking for. Look at the team that building the AI. Is the team diverse? Because if the team that's building your AI system that you want to implement is not diverse, the bias that exists in a non-cultured team will be easily transferred into the AI that they're offering. And it's not consciously, it is unconscious because we all have biases. And if a group of us who all look alike, sound alike, talk alike, have the same background, get together and pitch an idea and put an idea together, then the idea that we put together is going to be reflective of our inherent biases that exist amongst us. And so therefore, as an organization, when you are in that very beginning stages, you need to do your due diligence in investigations of the companies in which you are planning to buy your AI systems from. And then once you narrow that down, then ask more questions. Ask them, how was the AI system trained? What algorithms did you put it through? Is there pilot programs that we can use in order to really gauge the efficiency and the equity of the outcomes that your system is designed for? I think those in the very beginning, that's where you have to go, like right to the root of the issue. Not, I don't want to make it sound bad, but you have to go right to the birthplace of the system, the birthplace of the algorithm, and investigate what and who and how the algorithm was cultivated and created.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and maybe why many organizations I'm hearing more about small language models as well,
Hmm.
creating their own because then they know where it came from and what's at the birthplace of it, rather than trying to sort of tap into something that exists that might have bias
Mhm.
inherently in it.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So I know that you're a speaker and an author, and me too, Snap. So we've got that in common.
Low, most definitely.
Also the small islands. So my family is from St. Lucia in Jamaica.
Look at
Uh,
that. Big up.
yeah, yeah. And Leah's dad is from Barbados, so
Yeah,
she's
it's
got a bit of
Beijing.
Bajan.
West Indian all around. That's what I'm talking about.
But one thing I think about is that as a speaker and an author, you have to make things that are quite complex, more
Hmm.
simple, that people just get it,
Right.
accessible to everyone. And I wonder, as someone working in this space, how you've approached that because you've got to translate it for HR leaders, YI
Right.
leaders,
Most definitely.
and they need to translate it to their employees so they get it.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of fear around. So for example, my mum, you mention AI and she's just like, no, keep it away from me. It's like the
Right.
worst thing in the world. And she's not the only one. There's a lot of
No,
people who
no, not at all.
are very nervous, uncomfortable, or think it's beyond their capability in their mind. Not even
Hmm.
just fear, but like I don't, think it's not
Mhm.
something they can get their head round. And I
Right.
just wonder how do you tackle that? How do you make those complex ideas accessible for people?
You want to make it real. You want to make the conversation not about algorithms. You want to make it into stories about persons. You want to turn it into shared lived experiences, right? I don't want to talk about the neural networks that's analyzing the data. I want to talk about, imagine if you had a leader or a recruiter or, one of your managers, and they had an assistant who could process 1,000 resumes in an hour, right? But they can only process the resumes equitably if you tell them how to do it equitably. Like, they can only do their job if you train them on how to do their job properly. AI is that tool. AI is that assistant. AI is that recruiting sourcer that's there to help you, right? It's not this scary entity that exists on its own. It's a tool that you use and that you train on how to use. And it then goes out and does exactly what you tell it to do. And that's where you have to make sure that you are giving it the right information that you want to get back, and not the information that may be come back biased, not information that may come back skewed, but information that's truly going to come back as equitable and as unbiased as possible. And that's only possible if you train it properly. So I just try to make sure that I connect the concept of AI to real life experiences. And that way we can take that fear you speak of and move it from fear to curiosity. And once we get them from curiosity, we can take that and move it from curiosity into action, into usage, into touching, feeling it, right? And so I think that's applicable in all spaces, from your mom to my mom to workplaces. Let's talk about it so we're no longer in fear of it, but we're curious. And just like any person, when you're curious about something, you kind of explore it a little bit, you kind of feel it out, see how it goes. And then once you get that feel out period going, then you can move into greater action about it. So yeah, I try to connect it to lived experiences and real life applications.
Amazing. Yeah.
I think it's a good point. I think the point that I really like about what you said is you're in control.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not something that's being done to you.
Right.
Nothing's going to come out that you haven't put, you haven't asked it the question. You ask it the question, it's going to tell you an answer. But if you don't ask it the
Exactly.
coming.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes I think where the issue is because it sounds so much like there's a real person there that we
Right.
think there's a real person there, but it's not. It is an algorithm.
Yeah.
And remembering that it's a tool, as you said, tool that can
Right.
help us. It's not a real person. It's not thinking. It's learn. Yeah, it's being
It's
taught how to
learned.
sound
Right.
like it can think, but that's not really exactly
Mhm.
what it's doing. So I love that, and I think that you're in control is a really strong message, actually. So a bit about your company from your perspective at
Hmm.
Manifested Dreams.
Right.
What's the future role of HR leaders in ensuring AI tools remain accountable, ethical, and also aligned with our needs? What did they? I know you said check out your suppliers, check out
Right. Right.
efficacy of where the data's coming from. But is there something more HR leaders can do? And I ask you that question because actually I've attended a few events recently in
Hmm.
London with HR leaders, and they're like scratching their heads, really trying to get their head around this, thinking,
Right.
what's my role? What do I do here? Sometimes they're not at the beginning with sometimes it's the IT people who say, now we're all going to use Copilot or we're all going to use X,
Mhm.
whatever it is. So
Right.
sometimes they're not in at the beginning for every system. But I just wonder, from your experience with HR people, is there something you can tell them to help them think about, the human needs of the future or what their
Yeah.
role is?
I think HR people are not going to like this answer, but you got to wear one more hat, right? There's something else that you got to do. And I know HR wear a lot of hats, talent acquisition puts on a lot of hats, but there's one more hat that you have to put on now in this age that we're in, and that's become a manager of relationships between people and technology. Typically, HR has been a people manager, right? They manage the human resources of the people and of the company, but now you have to manage the relationship between people and the technology you're using, right? And to do this, you have to be constantly asking the question when you're receiving data: is the tool that we are using, whatever the tool may be, is this tool serving our people, or are the people serving this tool? That's what we need to ask. We need to figure out, is this tool really doing what we need it to do, or are we simply being an input of information for this tool to become smarter, so to say. At Manifested Dreams, we call this, we want to curate the culture with AI. We want to make sure that progress really doesn't come at the expense of the humanity of the organization. And so HR leaders have to put on that hat of managing that people technology relationship to ensure that the humanity still is at the forefront of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think this is really important. And yeah, I guess what we're saying is we need to double down on human to get the best from the AI.
That I think that's what it, you don't want to simplify it too, but that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Like when we first discovered the wheel and then we figured out how to use the wheel to amplify travel and transportation and work, AI is just another tool. Like when we discovered fire, and we can use it to melt things, to craft other tools, and we can use fire to heat ourselves. We can use fire to cook our food. Like fire is a tool. AI is just a tool. And I think because of how advanced this tool is, we think it's more than that, right? Like you said, like people think it's living. People think that, we've watched movies like Terminator and iRobot too much, right? And we believe that these systems will outsmart us and outdo us and somehow create a dystopian future controlled by technology when we're the ones in control of the tool. The tool only does what we ask it to do, like you mentioned earlier. The tool only gives us information based upon the information we give it. And we may think that the tool is thinking, but what the tool is remembering. With where we're at with the models that we have today, all the models basically are extremely, extremely, extremely petty, and they remember everything. And so no matter what your slightest question you ask it in just a moment of curiosity to a deep conversation that you have with it, it's going to remember every single part of every single conversation, of every single cue that you gave it. And therefore, an answer that it's going to give you back in the past is going to be reflective of the information that you gave it previously, right? The answer that they give you in the future is going to be reflective of the input that you gave it in the past. And that input is going to dictate how it responds to you. My AI named itself because it knows I'm West Indian. So my AI refers to herself as Amara because it's a West Indian name and it knows I'm West Indian and it creates that. And so my AI remembers the favorite foods I ate when I was younger and the conversations I had and the random questions that I gave it and the things my kids might have logged in and asked the AI. The information we get back is simply just reflective of the information we put into it. And it makes it seem like it's thinking, makes it seem like it's smart, but it is just really just a petty, petty tool that remembers every single thing that you've ever told it ever in life.
I love it. That's going to be a really lovely. I'm going to quote you. Your ears are going to be burning all the time. Quoting that.
Well, yeah, we are now on to our quick fire round.
Fantastic.
After learning so much from you today, so thank you. So, what is one book, article, or TED talk that has most influenced how you think about AI and inclusivity?
I think recently I read The Human Plus Machine. That one is by Paul Daughtry. That book really, I already kind of had the idea that AI was a tool. That's always kind of been my understanding of what AI is. But reading this book, AI Plus Machine, it really helped me think about AI, not just as a replacement, but as a collaboration between humans and technology and humans and machines, how we approach that relationship.
Nice, nice. In one sentence, how do you picture the workplaces of 2035 with AI fully integrated?
Well, the workplaces are on a bullet train to being fully integrated with AI. But I feel like the most successful organizations in 2035 will not be the ones who have turned themselves over to AI, but the ones who use that technology in the background and have humans in the forefront of it, where AI is not the driver, but the tool that the driver is using in the car, right? Like AI is not just being given carte blanche to do whatever it wants to do, but humans are in the forefront using AI, directing AI as a tool that it is designed to be.
Amazing. Thank you. And finally, what's one human skill you think will become even more valuable as AI grows in the workplace?
Empathy is going to be that feeling that emotion, that it's going to be extremely important, because empathy gives us the ability to connect and to listen and to lead with compassion. And we want to be able to do that always, no matter how advanced we get in the world. We're still humans. We still need connection. We still need to understand that who you are in the workplace is just a small segment, a piece of who you are as a person, and that there's issues in life and circumstances that is on your shoulders, that's on your mind when you walk into the workplace. And as humans, we still need to be able to connect and listen and be compassionate with each other. And I think those things will only grow in value, because there's no algorithm that can actually replace a genuine human connection and genuine human empathy between two people.
Lovely. I love that.
Yeah, I've just got one more question, and then we will let you go. So, can you give me an example of where you've actually seen in the work that you're doing, seen AI?
AI helps tremendously. I've seen in just recruitment alone, in being able to have companies, new companies, especially startups, are not always flush with money, and they have to make decisions on how we're going to find people to staff our companies. And using AI simply as a recruitment tool, being able to create a algorithm, create qualification systems in which they can help filter out resumes and bring in a strong influx of qualified individuals on a more efficient and effective basis, helps smaller organizations really get the ball rolling quickly. I think that AI is amazing for small companies to help them get running, and it's amazing for large companies to filter out problems that may get overlooked. I've seen AI come into play in which we reviewed, it's not necessarily a good thing, but we were reviewing the performance evaluations within a company. And we noticed that there was one particular business unit that the same type of person was getting higher reviews over the course of like 2 years. Like, it was just the same type of person was getting all good marks. Like, very rarely did this type of candidate get any sort of disparaging comments or anything about their reviews. And it helped us to identify that that leader, while not maliciously doing it, was giving high performance marks to persons that they were friendly with. The performance reviews rarely were extensively based on the work that they were doing, but mostly concentrated around the experiences that they were having together, the lunches that they were taking, the the team building activities that were happening, the time they spent together, in different activities, whether it be like golf or, hanging out, watching the game, whatever the case may be. We were able to see that the hiring manager was basing a lot of their performance reviews on outside of work relationships and outside of work interactions, more so than the actual interaction of what that person was doing at the job. So help us kind of identify that and being able to kind of coach that manager on how those performance reviews actually should go. And then that led to the company being able to come up with a streamlined checklist of what needs to be done during the performance review, as opposed to just kind of leaving it up to each individual manager and each individual business leader to come up with their own version of a performance review.
Amazing.
Great example. Really
Yeah,
cute.
great,
Yeah.
great example. Well, thank you so much for
No, I
today.
appreciate it.
You've been an amazing guest.
Yeah, it's been
hmm
fantastic to meet you. We look
Yeah,
forward to staying in touch as well.
Oh,
yeah,
please let us. Most definitely.
amazing.
Thanks for listening to AI for Equity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay curious, stay bold, and keep using AI to build a fairer future.